Hello, welcome to Mikey Likes You, the greatest health and fitness podcast on the planet. I was supposed to do a Q&A, and I'm not going to do a Q&A. Here's the reality. I solicited for questions on Wednesday, I believe, and, the solicitation for said questions is still up, and I encourage you to maybe add a question if you have one and you didn't get a chance to do it. At Mike Catherwood or at Mikey Likes You 1, the number 1, not the number spelled out O-N-E. So I was supposed to do it, and Wednesday I'm going to do it, and granted I'm busy. I am. I'm very busy. I'm a freaking farmer now. And I have a child, and she had a school event on Wednesday, or on Thursday, that kind of got in my way there. And I have my other podcast that I do with Kevin from Kevin and Bean called Great News. I encourage everyone to check it out. It makes me feel better about life. So Wednesday comes, I can't get it done. Thursday comes, I can't get it done. Friday, things go to hell as far as, the farm animals and things, just emergencies pop up. Nothing too major. Get a flat tire. Needless to say, we're looking at Memorial Day now. And I just couldn't bring myself to do it. Did I have the free time? I did. It was, I was busy, but I couldn't motivate myself. And in that time, in that same amount of time, I found that I was driving to the gym or driving to pick up my daughter to go for a play date with her and another little friend of hers. And these are things that I genuinely love. I don't just enjoy doing them. I have a passion for having the opportunity to do it. And I'm thinking of reasons how I can get out of it, how it's going to suck. And I'm sleeping terribly, even though I'm kind of tending to my sleep etiquette. And more, I'm starting to factor everything in, and I'm realizing I'm moving through quicksand. And I felt like I was constantly on the verge of snapping. I felt this tidal wave of anxiety, but also anger. And I felt on the verge of frenzy. And I was going to go in a couple different directions. I was either just going to break down and start crying. I did. I felt like for some reason I just wanted to just cry. Or I wanted to go and smash shit. Now, I'm not a violent guy. I'm really not. I've never been someone. I can't think of a time ever, even in my partying days. And I was a loudmouth, shitty, drug addict. But I never picked fights. I'm not that guy. I'm not. I don't have that feeling of wanting to go out and inflict pain or suffering on anyone else. But I'll willingly do it to myself. And so I just, I almost felt this comfort or this draw to just sit in this horrible feeling, this depression, right? And it was all too familiar because I'm someone who's suffered with clinical depression for a long time. And if I'm going to pat myself on the back about anything, it was that I never really just accepted that for what it was worth. I always tried to do the dirty work to get through and to take charge and take control of it. Constantly in therapy, constantly examining different forms of therapy from Eastern principles, Buddhism, meditation, traditional psychiatry. And then, of course, a huge factor was just getting clean, getting off drugs and alcohol. And, of course, in the first year or so of being clean, there was just a pink cloud of everything kind of falling into place for the first time in my life. And after that, I had to deal with life again. And there were always cycles of me being kind of a morose, despondent person. But I knew. I didn't think. I always knew. I was like, that's not who I am. I'm a guy who is just varying levels of happy. That's my genuine disposition. I've given up on trying to really just identify in total with great clarity my identity. I don't give a fuck anymore. I know what I like and I don't like. I know what's difficult for me and what's comes easily to me, and I just go about my day trying to be the best person I can. I don't have this desire to kind of identify who am I. Am I this type of guy? Am I that type of guy? It's always subjective in the best of situations, so I've given up on that. But I know I'm a happy person. I'm a people person. I enjoy people. I enjoy being alive. So when I have these bouts that are without question real, it becomes more and more disturbing to me. And I withdraw. At first subconsciously, and then as time goes on, I recognize it, and I was like, geez, it's been 3 days since I've, put up a podcast, or since I've answered a question to patrons or something. It's been a couple nights of me not going out in the backyard and playing with my daughter, as opposed to just sitting here and stewing in my own bullshit. I'll recognize, but at first it happens kind of in that area beyond my knowing. And I just wanted to talk about it because for a couple reasons. One, I started to get, coincidentally, it's so strange how the universe works, right? I started to get these messages from my top tier patrons kind of echoing the same thing. That, yeah, I'm not going to go do something drastic, but I just feel like I'm walking through quicksand. So, that always tells me like there might be a need, there might be a desire for people to at least hear someone talk about it. And another thing is like I'm going over my social media accounts and I'm recognizing that I'm falling victim to something, and I'm not necessarily going to criticize this. I'm simply pointing something out. That this whole take life by the balls, alpha male, go get 'em, especially in like the meathead community, the health and fitness and wellness thing. There's always this uniform kind of perpetual image of confidence and extreme levels of self-esteem. And I don't think that that's reality. This individual DM'd me and said, hey, I've had about 2 years where I've really been working hard. I've been training and I've been eating, and he sent a picture and he looked great. And he said, but how I just can't seem to get this confidence, this air of confidence, and this feeling of self-worth that you have, Mike. What advice can you give me? And on one hand, it's a tremendous compliment, but on another hand, it started to get me a bit introspective, because I was like, well, I'm not particularly confident, a particularly confident guy. I'm not a wallflower, a complete pushover. I can be assertive when I really genuinely feel like I need to be, and I don't seek out confrontation, but I'm also not afraid of it if someone greatly, if there's a tremendous level of dissonance between what he or she believes and what I believe. Or if someone's trying to impose something on me that I don't think is right. I'm not someone who just kind of follows and is a conformist to my own detriment. But at the same time, I spend a lot of my time, all the time, even in the best of situations, really wondering if I'm a good person, if I feel very inadequate about not making enough money, not being in the right setting, being my standing in life isn't high enough. It's not what I expected it to be by this age. I wonder if my wife loves me enough, if I'm doing enough as a husband. And am I a good father? And I get really upset. Like, the more and more I recognize, like, every day that my daughter gets older and I get these milestones where I recognize she's getting older, I get all torn up inside. And I have no ability to look back and be like, well, you spent a lot of your time being a good, loving, nurturing father who's really there for her and does a lot of good work to develop her as a human being. A lot of that is true. And I do that shit. But I seem to be just overwhelmed and incapable of puncturing through this feeling of, like, what have I done that isn't enough? Like I'm meaningless, And this isn't, this whole diatribe is not meant for me to seek out sympathy or to be some weird baby who's just an exhibitionist for his suffering. What I was hoping to achieve was to kind of maybe pull back the curtain a little bit on this veneer of, like, men, particularly in this space of, like, fitness influencers and wellness influencers and just kind of vanguards of a healthy life in general, like this crazy, very carefully crafted veneer of things being perfect and confident, because at least as far as I know, that's not the way it is. That's certainly not my experience. And frankly, the more and more I push past these feelings of self-doubt, that's how I develop my ability to have any level of self-worth or confidence to begin with. I think like the term of toxic masculinity, this is where it all gets hinky. Because people, when they think of toxic masculinity, especially people who have no idea what the fuck they're talking about, which tends to be most people who are most vocal on social media, they think of like domestic abuse or sexual assault or you know, kind of locker room talk. And that's not toxic masculinity. That's just, it's just reprehensible, period. No one in their right mind would ever factor that into masculinity, femininity, or anything. It just has no business kind of existing, period. It's immoral and unethical. And by pretty much every standard, whatever school of thought you come from, whether you're a Marxist, extreme leftist, to the level of you know, Lenin-style Marxism, whether you're like a neo-conservative, whether you're a hippie living in Berkeley, whether you're a cow farmer out here in the rural areas of Texas, there's no school of thought where that's acceptable, you know, and that's what everyone goes to. The idea of toxic masculinity is this whole, to me, is this like impenetrable lack of vulnerability that a lot of guys like to portray. This beefed up, I just grind and I eat nails and I shit fucking, you know, I shit them out and it doesn't bother me one bit because I keep going. And my infallibility is clearly evident to you. Can you see this? And I'm wealthy and I work out and I make my wife come 11,000 times every time I touch her. Because I don't see that as masculine. The complete disregard of fear and vulnerability is sociopathy. The confrontation of those weird, anxious feelings and those feelings of fear and self-doubt. And instead of just allowing them to either beat you up or running the other way, you figure out a way to keep pushing through. That's where I look at men and I go, that's the man I want to be. That's the type of guy I admire, because I'm scared and I doubt my self-worth. And it's really hard. You know, and I'm gonna make a weird analogy here, but I hope it works. That's why I got into classic country music, because I loved punk rock and metal and hip hop a lot growing up. Like, I was really drawn to it. But this almost uniform, never-ending barrage of pow, 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 and omnipotence and domineering power, it almost started to feel false to me. Because there was no vulnerability there. And then you hear Waylon Jennings or Hank Williams or Johnny Cash, Merle Haggard, and these are these really tough dudes. Really, really rough fellas that are so macho. You know, they're just like ooze machismo, but at the same time they were incredibly vulnerable. And they would write songs about how they're having a hard time getting through the day, and they feel suicidal, and their heart got broken by a woman, and they don't know how they're going to put the pieces back together. And I went, that makes sense to me. That's meaningful. And I was worrisome and fearful that I was kind of falling into the hip hop metal world of like classic thrash metal, where it's just everything's power, overwhelming power. And I was giving off this vibe that I was somehow this ever confident, ever powerful guy who was living this alpha life. And that's not true. It's not true. And for the last 4 or 5 days, I couldn't even motivate myself to like go to the gym or go train martial arts, and certainly I couldn't even do this podcast because I felt like I wasn't good enough, like I'm not tough enough. I'm not. I feel fucking fat. I went back into that thing where I didn't want to take off my shirt, and I'm out farming, carrying bales of hay. It's 104 degrees. Not exaggeration. I mean, it's literally 104, 105 degrees every day out where I'm at right now, and humid, and I'm just, it looks like I took a shower. I'm sweating so hard, and I was like, no, I don't want to take up. I feel fat and shitty. That's how I felt about myself. And I was like, well, why the fuck? I sure hope I'm not giving off the vibe that I'm this guy who's like, look at my shredded physique at all times. Because that's not the way it is. And Memorial Day is upon us, and that always adds a layer, because my grandfather, my dad's dad, was long time, highly decorated naval serviceman who fought in World War II. My dad's old to have a guy my age, and subsequently his dad was older, and my grandfather served in World War II and was a well-decorated naval officer. And my father volunteered into the military during the Vietnam War, and then went on to serve in the Pentagon as an officer. Again, very highly decorated. He devoted his life for 18 years to the United States military, and he always likes to make it very clear he wasn't over in the shit in Vietnam. But my dad, he worked at the Pentagon at almost the highest levels of clearance, at the ground floor of computer technology and defense, and keeping our country safe as the Cold War was really getting out of control. And my dad was there, and he tells stories about leaving the Pentagon in 1972, 73, and it was tough to wear a uniform, in Washington. There were so many protesters and so many people saying horrible things to him, but he powered, and he believed in the cause, and he did it, and then I'm me. And it just sparked whether it be Veterans Day, whether it be Memorial Day, I always get this weird sense of inadequacy that I didn't do it. For a couple of reasons. One, I would have been a good soldier. I would have, and I was too fucked up to do it. During the age when I could, I was smoking rocks and drinking for breakfast. And of course, things worked out the way they should. And, I would hope that you brave men and women who are watching or listening to this that are in the military or were in the military can agree that, like, I figured out a way to serve the people and the community in a different way, and I've still found a value for myself. But there is that feeling because I believe in the cause. I believe in it, and I feel like I could have been a good soldier. And so I get this weird inadequate feeling, right? So all this is compounding, and that's just the basis of this whole podcast. Was, again, not to do a monologue about how I'm suffering for the sake of, feel bad for me. More for the sake of, like, hoping to puncture through this weird, kind of disgusting facade of invulnerability that a lot of the modern kind of fitness men wellness world likes to put out there. Because that it's certainly not me. And men in real guys who claim to be alpha, these guys would fucking punk them and send them home with their tail between their legs. Special forces friends of mine and high level UFC fighters. Real guys that don't have to prove that they're alpha. They just emit it. When I talk to them, they say the same shit. They don't say, "Oh yeah, I'm never scared, and I'm never tired, and I'm never cranky, and I'm always." No, they go, "Yeah." Life was always easy when it's easy, but then I found out who I was when I was scared shitless, and I just figured out a way to make it happen. I was rereading Coraline, the Neil Gaiman book, and there's a very famous, I believe Tim Burton made the movie. Both are excellent. I recommend them. Rereading Coraline, and there's a scene where Coraline's walking with her father out in the woods, and what they don't know yet, it ends up being like these mystic wolves and stuff that come and attack them, right? And Coraline's dad, instinctively, he says, "Run, run," and he stays and he fights the animals off, right? And Coraline's like, she cares of her dad, but she's scared, so she runs. And the dad fights him off and ends up coming out. He's cut up and all that, but he ends up surviving, right? But he walks back to Coraline in safety. He's like, "Oh, crap. I forgot my glasses. I lost them," and he can't see without them. And they're like in this parallel universe. He needs his glasses to see, to find their way back to reality, to their dimension. And Coraline's like, "You can't, Dad, you can't go back." He's like, I have to. And he goes back and he gets the glasses and confronts the wolves, or gets the glass, comes back, and he brings Coraline aside when they finally get to safety again, and he says, "I need you to understand something." And this is something that always bothered me because it wasn't in the movie, and I thought it was like the most profound part of the book. He said, "Coraline, you need to understand something. When I fought away the wolves initially, that wasn't brave. I was doing what I had to do. I was fighting for survival. When I went back for the glasses, that was real bravery." He said, in not these exact words, when you know fear, and then you go back and you confront it, that's where bravery comes. It's not the absence of fear. It's the confrontation of it, the acknowledgement and the confrontation of it. And I don't even really want to talk too much about it because there's just no happiness or joy in it. But the Uvalde, the most recent Texas school shooting, it got me thinking a lot about everything. And I'm looking at gun violence, and I'm looking at mental health by and large. And I started thinking, there was the greatest generation, the generation of World War II, my grandpa's generation, and they had the Great Depression, and they had World War II, and they had many things that were just so grand and important that they had no ability to get lost in trivial things. And then my dad's generation, he had Vietnam, and you either were dealing with the war as a man, or you took up against it and you burned your draft card and you protested and you felt strongly about it. And then my generation came along, and I felt like I was like the middle child of it, because all I had was this feeling of meaninglessness. And everything I did, I felt like I was doing it wrong, and I didn't have any real purpose. I was constantly searching for purpose as a teenage boy, and then into my early 20s. I felt like, if you're a condiment, the condiments in your refrigerator, yeah, I was like the shitty condiment, old, like an old thing of Miracle Whip, right? I don't know. I'm trying to think of like a really shitty condiment. That's very subjective, but let's say I was kind of like the not often used condiment, and that every time the refrigerator door, I'd be like, please pick me, and sure enough, they'd reach for ketchup, and they'd close that door, and I'd be in that darkness, wondering what I was even good for, And then the door would open, I'd be like, oh, come on. And then they'd grab that mustard, and I'd be like, God damn it. And I just was left wondering. And sure enough, you grow up and you realize you got to create that meaning for yourself. But man, what if you're that kid now and you got social media? And that refrigerator door never closes. You're just constantly looking at an open door of everything else getting picked and used and put on sandwiches, and you're in the back, thinking like you're the only one. And what if you're that disenfranchised mom who feels like her family doesn't appreciate her, or that dad who works his fingers to the bone only to come home to people that don't maybe give you any recognition? That was bad enough in 1998. Now, and you look and you see everyone, no matter what age you are, it's your peers living this perfect, glorious life. That it's like that refrigerator's always open. And there's this never-ending stream of people coming in, taking other shit for the buffet, living it up. It's no wonder that, whatever metric you would measure mental health by, this country is suffering greatly. And I just didn't want to be a part of that open refrigerator door, I wanted to let you know I always feel like the shitty condiment. Always. Not always. Of course, there's some times when, I feel like ketchup. Something, I feel like something that everyone loves. And, but what the best part about it, at least in the last 4 or 5 years, is that I feel like I earned it. I feel like I earned being awesome condiment guy. But man, there's a whole lot of time feeling like shitty condiment. I gotta think of a good one. Like that everyone would go, oh, yeah, that's shitty, I don't use that. I feel like tartar sauce. Like you bought it once because you were like, I'm gonna make some great halibut, but then you never end up fucking using that ever again. So I'm tartar sauce. Most of the time. But every once in a while I feel like ketchup, man. Alright. Enough of that. I love you all. I'm going to do the Q&A, and I'm going to do it soon because I'm actually traveling this week in the middle of the week. So I'm going to try to bang out another one. I might do like a road one, include my daughter, my wife, because I'm going to be traveling with them. So, yeah, it's coming. Go ahead, go to my Insta, at Mike Catherwood or at Mikey Likes You 1, and you can go there and see the solicitation for the questions, and you can actually add some questions if you haven't got a chance yet. If you have a question that's burning you up, and check out my Patreon and my YouTube page if you're listening to this on the audio only pod. In this crazy mixed up world that makes you think that nobody cares, remember, I do. Be good.